Now that you know the basics of call and put options, we'll dig a little deeper and look at the pros and cons of buying versus selling options. There are a few popular reasons people tend to trade options. Speculation is one of those reasons and is usually associated with buying options. Because options have expiration dates, I have the ability to obtain the exposure of 100 shares of stock for a fraction of the cost of the actual shares. If I have a strong directional assumption, owning a call option would give me way more leverage than owning shares, and my potential return on capital could be much higher for that reason. I can also speculate on a stock selling off by purchasing a put. The same concept applies, except now I have the exposure of 100 shares of short stock when I purchase a put. Because this contract expires, I put up much less capital than shorting 100 shares of stock, and unlike shorting shares, my max loss is capped at the debit paid for the put contract. Others may be looking to protect their shares of stock by purchasing options at different strike prices. I can fully insure or protect 100 shares of long stock by purchasing a put contract. If the stock drops below the put strike, I'm fully covered, as the put contract allows me to sell 100 shares of stock at that strike price. If I'm short 100 shares of stock, I can purchase a call option to protect my shares against any upside movement. Protecting long shares of stock by purchasing a put is a popular strategy in the industry, which is why you typically see puts trading at a higher price than equidistant calls in equities. The more people buying the puts, the higher their price will be. This imbalance in price when you compare puts and calls is known as volatility skew, which you'll learn more about later. Investors can also sell options, and many do so to hedge or reduce the cost basis of their positions. If I own 100 shares of stock, I can under-hedge my position by selling a call against the shares. This isn't a perfect hedge like owning a put because it doesn't completely protect my shares to the downside. This does allow me to collect premium though, which reduces the cost basis of my shares and also allows me to benefit from any increase in the stock price up to the strike of my short call. The same thing can be done with short shares and a short put, which allows me to improve the cost basis of my short shares with the sale of a put, and I can still profit from any downside movement down to the put strike. These strategies are known as covered calls and covered puts, and you'll learn more about them later in the course. Trading the probability of an option expiring worthless is the tastylive wheelhouse, and closest comparison to an insurance agency or casino. We're taking small risks over a large number of occurrences, taking advantage of generally overpriced options, and betting against a stock having huge moves. This approach is where strategies get really flexible, as I can literally create ranges of profitability rather than static direction in stock trading. When it comes to a put contract, the buyer benefits when the stock goes down. In order for the buyer to see a profit on the put at expiration, the strike must have more intrinsic value than the extrinsic value paid for the right to own the contract. This is why we prefer to sell put options. Our research shows that more often than not, extrinsic value is too expensive relative to the move the stock actually makes. When selling a put, I can profit if the stock stays the same or goes up. In these cases, the put would be worthless at expiration and I'd keep the initial credit received as profit. The stock can even go down a little bit as long as it doesn't go below my put strike. For call contracts, the buyer benefits when the stock goes up. In order for the buyer to see a profit on the call at expiration, the strike must have more intrinsic value than the extrinsic value paid for the right to own the contract. This is also why we prefer to sell call options. Our research shows that more often than not, extrinsic value is too expensive relative to the move the stock actually makes. When selling a call, I can profit if the stock stays the same or goes down. In these cases, the call would be worthless at expiration and I'd keep the initial credit received as profit. The stock can even go up a little bit as long as it doesn't go above my strike. In the end, option sellers have a lot more flexibility than those that buy them. Sellers take on undefined risk but have a higher probability of success compared to option buyers. Option sellers are like insurance companies, where option buyers are like those that are insured. Okay, so we know that call and put options give us the right to buy or sell shares, but when does this actually happen? If an option is held through expiration and it has intrinsic value, the brokerage will exercise the option and it will turn into 100 long or short shares of stock. A long call will turn into 100 shares of stock, and a long put will turn into 100 short shares of stock if these options have intrinsic value and are held through expiration. A short put will turn into 100 shares of stock, and a short call will turn into 100 shares of short stock. The transactions above assume that I don't already own shares. If I do own shares, I may end up with no position at all. For example, if I'm long 100 shares of stock and I own a put, or I'm short a call, and the option expires with intrinsic value, both of these contracts will turn into 100 short shares of stock, but since I'm already long 100 shares, I'll be left with no position. I can't be long and short shares at the same time, and the brokerage recognizes this. If I'm short 100 shares of stock and I own a call or I'm short a put, and they expire with intrinsic value, I will be left with no position. The short put and long call both turn into 100 shares of long stock, and since I'm already short 100 shares, the position would disappear. The most important thing to remember is that if I have an option that's in the money or has intrinsic value, if it's held through expiration, it will turn into long or short shares of stock. If an option is out of the money or has no intrinsic value, it will expire worthless and nothing will happen. There are products that have option markets but not stock markets, and those typically expire to cash. These are known as cash-settled indices. Because there are different expiration dates with options, there are different classifications of expirations. This sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple when you break it down. Regular expirations are monthly expirations, which are on the third Friday of every month. This is where most investors trade, which makes for a good trading environment. The more activity there is, the easier it is to get in and out at a fair price. This is known as liquidity, and something we'll dig into later in the course. There are also quarterly expirations, weekly expirations, which are typically every Friday, and leaps, which are just very long-term option contracts. We follow the herd when it comes to activity, so we're typically trading regular monthly contracts with most other investors. Different expiration cycles will offer different extrinsic value premiums, and it's as simple as this. The more time there is to expiration, the more extrinsic premium value there will be. Just like an insurance contract, if I'm only insuring my car for a year, my total premium will be much less than if I were to insure it for 5 years. As an option owner, I'm paying for time to be correct in my assumption. As an option seller, I'm being paid for the risk that I'm taking. For example, if I own a 50 strike call and XYZ stock is at 55, my option has $5 of intrinsic value because it gives me the right to buy shares at 50 rather than 55. This option would be worth $5 at expiration, but it might be trading for $6.50 right now. That extra $1.50 in premium is extrinsic value, and that is the extra value associated with the contract based on the time left to expiration and how much implied volatility or potential movement the market is pricing into the option. When we talk about reducing the cost basis of shares that we may own, the more premium we collect when selling options, the more we reduce our cost basis. At the same time, we typically don't want to sell leaps against our shares that we own, as extrinsic value decay will be minimal day to day. We stick around the 45-day till expiration window so that we speed up our extrinsic value decay and collect a decent amount of premium for the risk that we're taking. We tend to trade the monthly cycles unless there's better liquidity in a different cycle. When companies announce their earnings for the quarter, we may trade in the weekly cycle that contains the announcement, as many people will be hedging their positions with options in that cycle. Really, it all comes down to liquidity, or the ease and fairness of getting in and out of positions, and a target date of 45 days till expiration for most strategies, to optimize our extrinsic value decay, otherwise known as theta decay. Let's review. Different expirations can be overwhelming, but it really offers us more flexibility as traders. We can trade in many different expiration cycles rather than just a few per year. Monthly expirations are typically the most liquid, as many traders focus on those expirations when trading options. If an option is in the money or has intrinsic value, it will turn into long or short shares of stock if held through expiration. Long calls and short puts turn into 100 long shares, and long puts and short calls turn into 100 short shares.